What's up, y'all? Same day, different setting. So, we on part 3, right? Okay, so we on part 3. So, uh, now, in part 1, we went over find out your grow zone. In part 2, we went over, figuring out what you want to grow. Basically, what you like to eat, what you like to look at if it's flowers. So, now that you have figured out your grow zone, you done figured out, you know, what you can easily grow or, fairly easily grow in your grow zone, things that you would like. Now, let's go on to the next step. What are we going to grow this stuff in? Are you going to grow it in the ground? You're going to grow it in pots? You're going to grow it in raised beds? That sort of thing. So, for me, I built a raised bed. That was the first thing I ever grew in. I built this raised bed. And honestly, that was really the only thing I knew to do. So that's why I built a raised bed. That's all I really saw. So I just did what I mainly saw. However, if I had to do it again, me personally, raised beds is a little bit more expensive way to go. It wasn't super expensive, but it was expensive enough. And then I didn't really think about how much money it would take to fill that bed with soil or growing media. So that was a consideration as well. So I always consider that. If I build a raised bed, how big is it going to be? How much soil media? You can do some quick math to determine how many yards of growing media that you would need depending on how big that bed is. If anybody wants me to go over the math, I can do that in another video. There's plenty of ways to calculate that online. I think Google is a calculator for you now, which will calculate a lot of stuff. Ooh, y'all, can y'all tell? My skin is horrible right now. But anyway, I go through periods like that, though. It is what it is. So, yeah. You want to figure that out. So, when I moved, I was like, I got to do something else. Because building these raised beds, buying the wood, and filling them with all this soil and stuff like that. I had already started a worm bin, kind of like, per se, a vermicompost before I moved. And I brought it here. And I made it bigger here. But yeah, that was a consideration. But I still wasn't making enough worm compost to fill big beds. Like, say you want a 4x8 bed. I wasn't making enough compost to fill that. And a 4x8 is not a huge bed. It's big, but it's not, it's not huge. It's not a great big bed. So, if I couldn't fill that, I couldn't fill anything bigger than that. So, that's why I decided to do tires. Now, me personally, once again, you always do your research. Have your first-hand information. You know what I'm saying? Don't always get information second-hand. So I did my own research or research tires. I didn't just up and get them and start growing in them just because I seen other people doing it. No, I did research and figured out if that's what I wanted to do. I looked up the pros and the cons to growing in tires. And I came to my own conclusions and decided that that's what I was going to do. And I do not regret it because, number one, tires are free. How can you find tires? I'll be honest. If you live in a city, you probably see tires on the side of the road all the time. You can go to tire shops a lot of times. I ain't saying everywhere, but you can go to tire shops. They charge tire shops to dispose of tires more than likely. So they are happy for you to take the tires off their hands because that's less tires that they have to pay to dispose of, because you can't just throw tires away. But a lot of times people do it anyway. They'll dump tires by dumpsters. They'll so look at these little duck off places. Always be curious and be looking around and be observing your surroundings, because you never know what you might find. If you do decide to go the raised bed route, let me tell you a way that I would do it now. Like if I had to build a wooden raised bed now, the way I would do it now, there's no way I buy lumber. You couldn't pay me to buy lumber right now to save my life. What I would do though, all these free pallets in the world, go on Craigslist, go on FreeCycle, go to these stores and different places where they have pallets. A lot of times you can get pallets for free. Yeah, you got to take a little bit of time to break those pallets down, but I want you to think about it like this. When you see those pallets and they loaded up with super heavy stuff, those pallets never bow. That's some good wood in them pallets. That is some very tough wood. And if it can hold up like hundreds up to thousands of pounds worth of weight, and that pallet is only about 4 inches tall, if it can hold that, it can hold back some dirt. So what I would have done is I would have gotten pallets, broken them loose, and used those boards and stuff like that to make raised beds. I've never done it personally, but I'm pretty sure you probably could build a nice size raised bed with just 3 pallets, and that would be completely free. Now, you got your time into it. I mean, you may have to buy some screws so you can screw it together. But pallets gonna come with the little blocks of wood and stuff that you can put at the corners, and you know, stuff like that to sturdy it up. So you're gonna pretty much every piece of wood that you would need to make that bed will come in those pallets. All you have to do is be strategic about how you break it loose, and don't be like haphazardly just breaking up everything. So you could go that route. If you want to go buy expensive cedar lumber and all that, or you want to buy pre-made beds, like you can buy these beds that you put together. You can buy metal bed. I've seen so many ways that you can do that. You can grow in ground. You know, ask yourself this. I didn't want to grow in ground here because my ground here is clay and there's tons of roots, and I'm talking about huge roots. The trees, I live in an old neighborhood, so the trees in my neighborhood, it's hard to find trees that's less than 40 years old in my neighborhood. Like, every tree around here is big, and it's been here longer than I've been alive. So it's like I didn't want to have to fight with that. And roots do play an important part in the ground. Roots help with soil erosion. Roots actually help hold the dirt where it's supposed to be. When you have soil erosion problems, it's usually places that don't have any trees or any vegetation to hold that soil in place. So I did not want to disturb that, because if I start disturbing a lot of these roots and the soil get to moving, what's the next thing? It's going to move my house. And my house is, I hate to say it, my house is more important than my garden. I can't really live in my garden. So I didn't want to disturb that. So I wanted to do something to where I didn't have to do all that work. Plus, even if I did till up the ground, fighting with all the roots, I just didn't want to fight that. I really didn't. Are there pros to growing directly in ground? Yes. Things tend to stay a little bit more moist directly in ground versus a raised bed. However, if you do these methods like the hugelkultur method, where you use wood at the bottom and then you top it with soil and the wood breaks down, even if you use wood chips, wood and wood chips hold a lot of water. Have y'all ever seen a log get water, like a wooden log get waterlogged? It'll hold water forever. Like, and your plants' roots can actually grow down into that. Earthworms love it. That's why I love wood. It's hard to get me to stray away from it now that I've tried it. I know everybody's going to talk about the Back to Eden. I don't ever classify my stuff as all these. I don't believe in these classifications, me personally. Like hair types and soil, like types of gardening classifications. And I don't believe in all that, because I just feel like you too focus on a name versus focus on getting it done. People be like, what do you call? I don't know. I just do it. I ain't got time to worry about a name. Just do it. So I'm more worried about action than naming something. If something deserves a name, I'll give it a name. But my gardening type, I think, is like a hybrid cross between a lot of different stuff. It's a cross between Back to Eden, square foot gardening, all. Like, I use methods from all of this different stuff. So, like I said, I ended up going with tires because tires was free. I also ended up going with tires because tires is a resource that you can recycle, and you can take that out of the waste stream. A lot of times tires end up in dumps and stuff like that. So all over the world, really, tires is actually like in South America, they build a lot of buildings with tires. because there's so many tires just laying around, and it's a waste stream they're trying to get rid of. You know, so that's why I used it. I am one of those kind of protect the earth kind of people. I know some people don't believe in that, and they think the earth gonna live forever and it can take anything, and you're entitled to that. I don't subscribe to that. You know, it is what it is. I'm not saying that I don't create waste. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm trying to do my part to take some of these things out of the waste stream that played a role in what I was doing. My babies. Every time I film, they come visit me. I know, baby. I'll leave you alone. I'll see you later. Okay, so that played a role for me. Also, I felt like those tires were smaller than a big, huge bed, and I could feel it. Another thing that played a role for me is when it comes to watering, anybody that knows anything about tires, water stays in tires. You can leave water in a tire, and it'll stay in there forever. Like round in the rim. Now, true enough, you're going to fill these tires with soil, but I don't have as much water evaporation due to this being a rubberized type of container. I think you're going to find something similar if you were to use anything that was plastic or metal. You're not going to have as much evaporation. All of the top of my soil is not exposed to the sun because I leave the sidewalls on my tires. You can't cut the sidewalls out. By the way, let me say this. I'm going to do a video if it's not already posted about tires, toxicity, etc., because people always have that question and it always comes up, and I'm just going to address it and bugs and put this video out here so that, you know, it'll be out there. But anyway, but yeah, so that's one of the things that, and ever since I've had tires, are there some cons? Yes. Mine are still black. I did not paint them white. Anybody that knows anything about black knows that they heat up in the summer. They do get hot. And I live in the South, and it gets 100 degrees here. Yes, those tires get hot. And yes, that will warm up your root zone. I don't think it stunted my plants any. Y'all can look at my previous videos and tell me if y'all think the heat stunted them. I don't think so. When I dig down into the middle of the soil, it doesn't seem like much of that heat is actually transmitting to the middle of the tires. It just seems like the soil closest to the tires is where it's the warmest, and I find that roots don't really grow all the way out there. Like, roots have never filled up my entire tire bed. The roots are generally mostly in the middle, is where I see roots at. So what else do I want to cover as the cons? I really can't think of too many other ones. Like I said, they get hot in the winter time. Because they are above ground, they are cooler than if you were to plant something in ground. But I haven't had a huge problem because usually in the winter time, because that rubber is black, it works the opposite way as it does in the summer. In the summertime, black attracts heat. In the wintertime, black attracts heat. But the thing is, in the wintertime, it tends, because it's black, it tends to keep the heat in. And if I do experience a frost, a lot of times my roots survive because they're black. It warmed that soil up nice, and the warmth, it retains the warmth pretty good throughout the night until the sun comes back up to warm them again. So yeah, so they work for me in the wintertime, which I really like that aspect of it. It works very much like the ground would, because the ground retains heat better than, you know, some other raised bed type situations. But yeah, I'm just telling y'all my experience with tires, because I have experience with raised beds that are wood. I don't think I'll ever make another wood one. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I don't think I'll ever make another wood one. Over time, they're going to degrade. You're going to have to build them again. I'm just really not for that. I could show you places on my property where whoever had this property way before me must have liked planting things in the middle of a tire. I'm not exactly sure why they did that. There are several trees that are now much older than me, and the tire is still around where the base of it is. Granted, the tire has it's pieces of the tire left. Some of them were broken down enough for me to cut it, and I was able to rip it out of the ground. But there are a few of them that are still left that I can't get to. But yeah, there are tires that they planted. Apparently they planted trees and different things in tires around here for some reason. I'm not sure. And now they're well established. The roots are all into the ground, and the tires are they're actually very resilient still, but they're still there. And so apparently this tire planting thing is not a new thing. Like I said, I'm just not one to redo stuff all the time. And I know tires after a while will disintegrate, but I'm pretty sure the tires that they planted these trees in on my property, one of them trees I know has to be 50 years old. And the tire's still there. And if you try to grab it with your hand and rip it up, you can't. Like, that's how resilient that rubber still is. So you can still read the writing on the side of it, all that. So they apparently last. I think these tires are gonna outlast me, honestly. Like I said, can't beat it free. So you can, instead of taking your money spending on wood, you can spend it on filling the tires. If for some reason you can't get tires for free around you, by all means, do pallets, something of that nature. Like I said, if I was going to do wood, that's the way I go. I do the pallets, it's free. Because you can take your money then, if you don't have a bunch of compost or something like that, you can take your money and put it on filling your beds or whatever you need to do, whether that's cocoa coir, soil compost, topsoil, potting soil, garden soil, whatever you need to do. So that's what you need to do next, folks. I've been talking for like 17 minutes now. So that's what y'all need to do. Figure out what you want to grow your stuff in. Okay? And then once again, have your notebook. Once you figure that, write down all the pros and cons. Write down, what you think will work. Write down, if you want to grow in the soil, write that down. Write down what you're going to need for that. Write down, you know what I'm saying? Think about all the little details. Write all that stuff down, okay? All right, so y'all stay tuned. Part 4 coming.